I want to welcome everyone to this discussion from Triangle to Rana Plaza to Temp workers. And we will get into a discussion about the connection on building worker power. I want to first recognize the different organizations that came together to do this work. That is Philadelphia Democratic Socialists of America. We have a number of chapters: Central New Jersey DSA, the DSA International Committee, also Rutgers Labor Education Research Network, where I work, and of course, the Bangladesh Garment Workers Solidarity Organization, whose work we're really going to dive into today. And let me not forget New Labor and the important work they do here in New Jersey. I'm going to hand it over to Dina Siddiqui, who is teaching at NYU. She has been researching garment workers for 25 years and has built a close friendship with the Bangladesh Garment Workers Solidarity Organization. Go ahead, Dina.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dijar, especially for helping to coordinate this very complex program. Welcome, everyone, to this very special event this morning or this evening, depending on where you are. I realize there are people from Bangladesh. It's a very special welcome to you. It's late at night. As you heard, our webinar today is actually centered around the 10th anniversary of the Rana Plaza Collapse, which is often referred to as an accident or a disaster, but really it was industrial murder, as we know. As with the Triangle Shirtwaist factory fire in a different part of the world 100 years before then, this was an entirely preventable, quote unquote, accident, right? What ties these two incidents together isn't just, is really the workings of global capitalism, putting profits before people. Even though there are lots of distinctions between the two incidents, we know that it's the way in which capitalism works that produces incidents like this. So today we are here to remember, to reflect, and to forge connections globally, because it's very clear that this is a global issue, not simply a national issue, right? As we move forward, we need to really coordinate and connect with other worker struggles in different parts of the world. So this particular convening is very special that way. I want to begin our proceedings with a slogan, I suppose, from the Garment Workers Solidarity organization that you'll hear much more about, which I think encapsulates why we are here: to remember the dead and to fight for the living. I think that's a really good way to move forward, and to pay our respects to those who perished at Rana Plaza. We will open with a poem by Alison Morse. Alison is an award-winning fiction, poetry, narrative, nonfiction writer. She has collaborated with visual artists and other people, most recently on something called The Price of Our Clothes, a multimedia exhibition about the garment industry. Alison, it's all yours.
Thank you. Ready to wear. She stitches a Calvin Klein t-shirt while wearing a bell-shaped camise she sewed herself 15 years after she, at 11 years old, was ferried by her mother from their village in Savar city to Dhaka district, where she could sew clothing to replenish her ailing father's earnings with the world's garment garment industry's lowest wages, the t-shirt she makes until the factory sacks her for being a child, the t-shirt she stitches in Savar to stay independent from mom and dad while following the boy she married to his village, only to find her new husband's job as a mechanic couldn't cover their food and rent. The t-shirt she makes at her sewing station near her husband, now a master cutter at Phantom Apparel in Rana Plaza, a maze of apartments, shops, and 5 garment factories built atop a filled-in pond. In Bangladesh, country of barely 42 years, a culture spanning thousands, where she earns no living wage as she stitches millions of ready-to-wear white t-shirts for Calvin Klein, a name owned by a company headquartered 2 blocks from the Empire State Building. The t-shirt she sews while pregnant with her 3rd child, while her sister stays home, her mother balks, her colleagues talk about wall cracks, and managers order everyone at the factory to go back to work. The t-shirt she places under the needle before the blast, loud as a blockbuster bomb, causes the 8 concrete floors of Rana Plaza to cave in, to crush, tear, suffocate over 1,000 daughters, sisters, wives, mothers, many of whom sewed t-shirts for Calvin Klein to be sold everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very powerful and moving. Really captures much of what went on. We will now turn to a very special speaker, Rupali Akhtar. Rupali was somebody who actually worked at the Rana Plaza building when it collapsed. She was trapped in the building for many, many hours. She is currently Secretary for Health Support at the Bangladesh Garment Workers Solidarity. And she will speak about her experience, but also about what she's doing right now. I will switch to Bangla and it'll be interpreted. That will be the easiest thing. So give me a minute. Rupali, আপনি আছেন? শুনতে পাচ্ছেন?
শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
আচ্ছা। রূপালী, আমি জানি আপনার এই স্মৃতি নিয়ে কথা বলতে অনেক কষ্ট হয়, তাও আমাদের জন্য আজকে যদি একটুখানি বলেন আপনার অভিজ্ঞতার কথা। আপনি যে ছিলেন বিল্ডিং এর মধ্যে এত ঘন্টা, 17 ঘন্টা বোধহয়, তাই না? আমি ঠিক জানি না। হ্যাঁ, তো তখন আপনি যদি একটু আমাদেরকে বলেন আপনার সেই অভিজ্ঞতার কথা, আমরা খুব কৃতজ্ঞ হব।
ধন্যবাদ। আপনাদের সাথে কথা বলার জন্য আমারও খুব ভালো লাগতেছে। আমি আসলে 2013 সাল 24 এপ্রিল আমি যেদিন সকালে আমি বাসা থেকে বের হই, সেদিন আমাকে বাসা থেকে বাধা দেওয়া হয়, তারপরও বাধা এড়িয়ে তারপর আমি বাসা থেকে বের হই, যেটার জন্য হচ্ছে যে মাত্র 24 তারিখ, আর মাত্র 6 দিন বাকি আছে। আমি যদি আজকে অফিসে না যাই তাহলে তো আমার বেতনটা নিয়ে সবচেয়ে ভাবনাটা ছিল বেশি। আমি যদি বেতনটা না পাই তাহলে আমার বাসা ভাড়া এবং সংসারের যাবতীয় খরচপাতি গুলো যা আছে আমার, সেগুলো আমি হয়তো আমার সমস্যা হবে আর কি। সেটা ভাইবা আমি সেদিন বের হই রানা প্লাজার দিক। তখন আমি রানা প্লাজারের যাওয়ার আগেই আমার বান্ধবীর বাসায় যাই, ওর কাছে যাই বলি যে আজকে যদি অফিস না খুলে তাহলে আমরা ঘুরতে যাব, এরকমটা বলে থাকি। তারপরে ওর হাজবেন্ড এবং আমরা 2 বান্ধবী মিলে বের হই ওর বাসা থেকে। বের হয়ে তারপরে আমরা রানা প্লাজার দিক রওনা হই। যখন রানা প্লাজারে গেটে গেলাম, তারপরে দেখি অনেক শ্রমিক সংখ্যা আর কি এখানে দাঁড়ায় আছে। তো আমি ওখানে আমরা দাঁড়ায় পড়লাম ওই জায়গায়। তারপরে আমার পিছনে ছিল ফ্লোর ইনচার্জ, আমার লাইন চিফ, সুপারভাইজার, সবাই ছিল এখানে দাঁড়া। তারপর ওরা বলতেছে দেখো মাত্র 6 দিন বাকি আছে, যদি তোমরা অফিসটা না করো তাহলে হয়তো তোমার বেতনের সমস্যা হইতে পারে। তখন ওইটা মাথায় রেখে এখন আমরা ভয়ভীতি মাথায় না রেখা, তারপরে মনে একটা খুঁতখুঁতি আছে যে কি না কি হয়। তারপরে আমি আমার বান্ধবী সহ আরো উপরে থেকে 2-1 জন ডাকতেছে যাওয়ার জন্য। আমি নিউ ওয়াইফ স্টাইলে কাজ করতাম 7 তলা ভবনে। আমি তখন 7 তলায় উঠলাম সিঁড়ি দিয়ে। উঠার পরে আমরা কাজ ধরছি, 1 বান্ডিল কাজ করছি, তার মধ্যে কয়েক পিস হাতে আছে। মানে কাজটা তো করতেছি, আমরা অনেক ভয়ে করতেছি, না জানি কি হয়। এমন একটা কালকে আমাদেরকে ছুটি দিল, আবার লাঞ্চে আসলাম, আমাদের ডিউটিও দেওয়া হলো না, আজকে আবার অফিস করাচ্ছে জোর করে। তার মানেটা কি এরকম? যখনই একটা শব্দ হওয়ার পরে আমরা অনেকেই আর কি মেশিন থেকে উঠে আমরা অনেক দৌড়াদৌড়ি করতে লাগি। তারপরে আমি আসলে কি পর্যায়ে যে আমি মানে শোয়া অবস্থায় হয়ে গেলাম সেটা আমি বুঝতেই পারলাম না। কিন্তু একটা বিল্ডিং ভেঙে যে মনে করেন যে আপনি নিচের দিকে যাচ্ছে সেটা আমি বুঝতে পারতেছি। তারপরে মনে করেন এখান থেকে পড়ে গেলাম। পড়ে যাওয়ার পরে আমার পায়ের দিকটা একটু ফাঁকা ছিল, তারপরে আমি পা নাড়াইতে পারছি, পাটাকে নাড়াইতে পারছি। তারপরে আমি দেখি যে এখানে অনেক লোকজন আছে। তারপরে আমি যার উপরে পড়ছিলাম তার নাম ছিল তানজিলা আক্তার। ওর মনে করেন যে বডি থেকে মাথা পর্যন্ত ওর ভীমটা পড়ছিল। আর আমি ওর কোমরের মধ্যে সারাদিন 17 ঘন্টা পর্যন্ত আমি ওর কোমরের উপরে মাথাটা রাখছিলাম। এদিকে হতে পারি না, এদিকে হতে পারি না, মানে কোনো কাজ হওয়ার কোনো সিস্টেম নেই। তারপরে আমার উপর আর একজন পড়ছে, তার নাম হইতেছে রুকসানা আক্তার। ও আমার ঠিক পেটের উপরে থেকে ও 1 পা গাইরে গেছে বিল্ডিং এর ভিতরে। এই যে ভাঙছে যে সব রাবিশ ওর ভিতরে পাটা আটকাই গেছে। তারপরে ওইভাবে কষ্ট করে এই 17 ঘন্টা পর্যন্ত পার করি। তার মধ্যে থেকে আরো অনেক কথা হয়েছে যে আসলে আমরা জীবিত থেকেও আমরা আজকে মৃত, আমাদের এখানে কেউ বাঁচাইতে আসছে না, আমরা বাঁচবো কিনা তার কোনো নিশ্চয়তা নাই। তবে আমরা সবাই সকলকে বলতেছি যে আমরা যদি একজন বের হই তাহলে আমরা আরেকজনকে উদ্ধার করবো, এরকম করে আমরা আলোচনা গুলো করতেছি, ভিতর থেকে মনে একটা জোর আনতেছি। আমার আমার এই ডাইন সাইডের কানের দিকটা একটা মেরুদণ্ড ভাঙ্গা, তারপরে আমার কানের একবারে মাউথে ওর মুখটা আমার কানের সামনাসামনি পড়ছে আর কি। মানে ও যে চিল্লাচিল্লি করতেছে আমার কানে খুব আওয়াজ, মানে সেটা সহ্য করতে পারতেছি না। তারপরে ও যখন চিল্লা পানি পানি করে, তারপরে আমি অনেক মানে খুব রাগ হয়ে আমি তাকে অনেক কিছু বলি। তারপরে আমাদের লাইনের আরেকটা কোয়ালিটি ছিল, উনি বলতেছে দেখেন আমরা তো মৃত্যু সজ্জায় আছি, এখন জীবিত অবস্থায় থেকেও কিন্তু মৃত্যু। তারপরে আমাদেরকে এসব কথা বলাটা ঠিক না, কিন্তু আমাকে তো ধৈর্য করাটাও তো আমার ঠিক না, আমি তো আর ধৈর্যের বাইরে হয়ে যাচ্ছি। আমি একজনের উপরে আছে, আমার উপরে আরেকজন আছে, আমার মুখের কাছে একজন আছে, কানের কাছে একজন আছে, সেটাও তো আমার ধৈর্যের সীমা মানে পার হয়ে যাচ্ছে। মানে কথাগুলো বলতে থাকি। তারপরে যখন দেখলাম যে সন্ধ্যা 6টা বাজে, তখন আমাকে একটা শব্দ আসার পরে সবাই সবাইকে বলতেছে এবার মনে আমাদেরকে বাঁচাবে, এরকমটা মনে হচ্ছে। তারপরে যখন আস্তে আস্তে এরকম রাত 12টা বাজে, তখন ওই ভীমটা কাটার পরে তখন বলতেছে যে মানে রাত 12টা বাজে, তাহলে রাত পোহাইতে আর বেশি নাই। তো বলতেছে মানে সাহস দিচ্ছে আর কি যে আপনারা কি এই রাতটুকু থাকতে পারবেন। আমি বলছি যে অসম্ভব, এখানে আত্মীয় স্বজন মা আমার হাজবেন্ড ছেলে মেয়েকে আমি এখানে রেখে আসছি, সন্তানদের এখানে আমি 17 ঘন্টা, এখানে অনেক ঘন্টা হয়ে গেল আমি এখানে পড়ে আছি মৃত্যু সজ্জায়, আমাদের আগে বের করেন। তারপরে এখান থেকে আমাকে প্রথম উদ্ধার করে আমরা 10-12 জনের মতো যে গর্তটার মানে একটা গর্তের মতো আর কি, এখানে অনেকটা ফাঁকা, সেই ফাঁকাটুকুর মধ্যে আমরা 10-12 জনের মতো ছিলাম। তারপরে ওইখান থেকে আমাকে ফার্স্ট ওইখান থেকে উদ্ধার করা হয়। উদ্ধার করার দিকটা আমি একটু ভয় পাই। যখন আমাকে একটা ফাঁকা জায়গা দিয়ে টানতে টানতে নিয়ে যাচ্ছে, তখন আমি একটা ভয় পাই যে এখানে তো কোনো লোকজন কিছু নাই, এমন জায়গা দিয়ে টানতেছে আমাকে। আমি অনেক ভয় পাচ্ছি এবং ব্যথা পাচ্ছি। আমাকে মনে করে আমি বলতেছি আমি অনেক ব্যথা পাচ্ছি। আর তারপরে মনে করেন যে টাইলস ভাঙ্গা গুলো আমার গায়ে অনেকটা আঘাত লাগতেছে, গা চিরা চিরা যাচ্ছে, এরকমটা মনে হচ্ছে। তারপরে আমাকে সারা শরীরটা ছায়া তারপরে টানতে নিয়ে যাচ্ছে। আমি যখন খুব ব্যথা লাগতেছে তখন আমি বললাম যে আমাকে একটু যদি কোলে করে বা কোনো একটা ইতে নিয়ে যাইতেন। পরে ওরা 4 জন আমাকে ধইরা করে উঁচু করে, তারপরে ওরা আমাকে একটা সাদা কাপড়ে নিয়ে উঠাইলো। উঠানোর পরে আমি আসলে খুব ভয় পাইছিলাম ওই জায়গাটাতে, যে আসলে আমাকে সাদা কাপড় উঠানো হচ্ছে কিসের জন্য। কিন্তু আমি আসলে মুখ খুলে বলতে পারতাছি না যে আমাকে কিসের জন্য এখানে উঠানো হচ্ছে। যখন আমাকে সাদা কাপড়ে উঠায় আমাকে যখন একটা অ্যাম্বুলেন্সে উঠানো হলো, তারপরে উঠায় আমাকে বলতেছে যে যখন আমার স্বামীর নাম্বারটা চাইলো, নাম জিজ্ঞাসা করলো এবং ফোন নাম্বারটা জিজ্ঞাসা করলো, তখন আমি সেটা বললাম। বলার পরে তখন আমার স্বামীকে ফোন দেওয়া হলো যে এনাম মেডিকেল কলেজ হাসপাতালে আমাকে ভর্তি করানো হচ্ছে, ওখানে আসতে বললো। তখন আমাকে ওইখানে নিয়ে অনেক মানে পরীক্ষা নিরীক্ষা করে দেখলো যে সেরকম একটা কিছু হয় নাই। আসলে অনেক এমনি আঘাত পাইছি, সেগুলো কাটাছিড়ার আঘাত। তো এখান থেকে আমি বের হওয়া ওইখান থেকে আসার 2 দিন পরে আমি মনে করেন যে আমি কথা বলতে অনেক কষ্ট হচ্ছিল, যে আমার বুকে যে চাপা পড়ছিল মানে টানতেছে অনেক, ভীমের ইটার থেকে আমি একটু আঘাত পাইছিলাম। টানা অবস্থায় ভীমে আটকা পড়ছিলাম আর কি, বুকটা আটকায় পড়ছিল। মানে তারপর আমি বলছি যে আমাকে বের করেন। তারপরেও যখন আমি 2 দিন পর যাই তখন আমার বুকটা অনেক ব্যথা, কথা বলতে কষ্ট হচ্ছিল। তারপরে আমি অনেক লড়াই সংগ্রামের মধ্যে দিয়ে আসলাম। যে আসলে কিভাবে আসলাম সেটা একটা বলার আছে যে আমি
লড়াই এবং সংগ্রাম সেটা আরো শুনতে চাই। আপনি একটা ভয়ঙ্কর অবস্থা থেকে উঠে এসেছেন এবং আপনার মনে অনেক জোর আছে যে আপনি কোথায়। একটু আগে তাসলিমা বলছিল যে আপনি সেই রূপালী নাই, ওই যে আগের রূপালী আপনি নাই, আপনি এখন একটা সংগঠনে কাজ করছেন। হ্যাঁ, আপনি এই অভিজ্ঞতাটা একটু বলবেন আমাদেরকে, যে আপনি যে ওখান থেকে উঠে এসছেন, তারপর তো আপনি এখন কি করেন ইয়েতে, আপনার কাজ কি এবং আপনি কিভাবে এসছেন, কি করেন, আপনার ভবিষ্যৎ কি একটু বলবেন? কারণ আমাদের আবার অন্য লোকেরা তো আছে, একটু যদি বলেন।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আমি আসলে এই লড়াইটাতে আসছি, এই সংগঠনে কিভাবে আসলাম সেটা আমি যখন সহিলানার একটা শাস্তির দাবিতে আমরা অনেক লড়াই সংগ্রামে রাস্তায় নামি, তখন এক পর্যায়ে আমি বুঝতে পারি যে আসলে আমাদের মাঝে অনেক শ্রমিক ভাই বোনেরা হারিয়ে গেছে, তাদের জন্য আজকে লড়াই করতে হচ্ছে। এত বড় একটা দুর্ঘটনা, আগের দিনটা থেকে যদি যেভাবে ছুটিটা দিছিল, 24 তারিখে যদি ছুটিটা দিত, এইভাবে যদি কারখানা বন্ধ রাখতো, তাহলে আজকে আমাদের মাঝে থেকে এতগুলো ভাই বোন মারা যাইতো না এবং মা বাবার বুক খালি হইতো না। এই জিনিসটা তখন আমি বুঝতে পারি। যখন আপনার 2014 সালে আসি, আইসা আমি একটা ব্যাগ কারখানায় কাজ ধরি। মানে তখন আমার একটু সমস্যা হচ্ছিল সংসারের দিকটা। তারপরে আমি একটা ব্যাগের কারখানায় কাজ করি। তখন ওই ব্যাগের কারখানার এখানে স্কুল ছিল, ওই স্কুলে আমাদের বাংলাদেশ গার্মেন্টস শ্রমিক সংগঠন থেকে একটা নাটক তৈরি করা হয়। এই রানা প্লাজার সম্পূর্ণ এই একটা নাটকের মতো আর কি। সেটা দেখে আমার খুব ভালো লাগে। তখন আমি লিমা আপার কাছ থেকে তার ফোন নাম্বারটা নিলাম, নিয়ে তার সাথে যোগাযোগ করা শুরু করলাম। এরপর এইভাবে আমি এই বাংলাদেশ গার্মেন্টস শ্রমিক সংগঠনের সাথে যুক্ত হই। এই 14 সাল থেকে আমি এই 23 সালে আইসাও আমি কাজ করতেছি। যার ফলে আমি বলতে চাই, আমাদের বর্তমান বাংলাদেশে যে অবস্থা ভয়াবহ, দ্রব্যমূল্যের দাম থেকে শ্রমিকের কি দাম, যে শ্রমিকের যে বেতনটা পাচ্ছে সেই বেতনে শ্রমিকদের চলে না। কিন্তু আপনাদের যে এই জিনিসপাতির ঊর্ধ্বগতির দাম হিসাবে আমাদের শ্রমিকদের সে মূল্যে যে বেতনটা পায় সেটা দিয়ে কোনো মতে চলে না। আমরা যেটা দাবি করেছি যে 25,000 টাকা মজুরি, সেটা আমাদের যদি নির্ধারিত করা হয় এবং শ্রমিকদের মাঝে এটা খুব স্বাস্থ্য সুস্থভাবে যদি সেটা আমাদেরকে দেওয়া হয়, তাহলে সাধারণ শ্রমিকটা হয়তো একটু ভালো করে বাঁচতে পারবে। এটা আমাদের একটা দাবি। আমাকে এই যে স্বাস্থ্য বিষয়ক সম্পাদক হিসাবে একটা দায়িত্ব দেওয়া হয়েছে, আমি বলতে চাই যে আমি যেটা মনে করি, আমাদের যে এতগুলো সংগঠন, আমাদের সংগঠনের মধ্যে আমাদের ভাই বোনের এবং তার আত্মীয় স্বজন অসুস্থ হলো কিনা তাদের খোঁজ খবর নেওয়া, এবং সংগঠনের বাইরেও কিন্তু আমাদেরকে সেটা দেখার খুব দরকার। যেহেতু আমরা একটা সংগঠন করি, আমরা কখনো পা পিছিয়ে থাকবো না। আমাদের যেটা দায়িত্ব হচ্ছে, আমরা যত আগাইতে পারবো আমাদের মনের জোরটা দিয়ে, আমাদের সংগঠনের একটা জোর আছে, সেই জোরটা দিয়ে যতদূর আমরা আগাইতে পারবো, আমরা সামনে আমাদের সংগঠন এবং আমাদের ভবিষ্যৎ সামনে আমরা ভালো বাস্তবায়ন করতে পারবো। থ্যাংক ইউ।
অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ, থ্যাংক ইউ। আপনার কাছে আবার আমরা কিন্তু ফিরে আসবো, আপনি চলে যেন না। হ্যাঁ, আরো 2-3টা বক্তা কথা বলে নিক, আমরা আবার আসবো। হ্যাঁ, খুব ভালো বলেছেন। আচ্ছা, okay, so we heard the harrowing experience of Rupali Akhtar, but we also heard about how she's managed to transform, really change things around. We're going to move on now to the United States and to the experiences of immigrant workers in the United States. Our next guest is Rinalda Cruz from New Labor. She's a worker, she's a member of New Labor. It's a great pleasure to have you here, Rinaldo. Welcome. Could you start by telling us a little bit about New Labor and about how you became involved in New Labor? Thank you.
Hola, buenos días. Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Reinalda Cruz. Yo soy miembro de New Labor, pero ahora soy parte del staff de New Labor. Yo inicié en New Labor en el 2007. Realmente esta organización para mí fue muy importante, ya que es una organización que educa, organiza y lucha por mejorar las condiciones de los trabajadores. Y más que nada, cuando yo llegué en el 2007 era porque yo trabajaba en un hotel y también trabajaba por las agencias temporales. Y me di cuenta que realmente New Labor estaba luchando, tenía una campaña, una lucha muy fuerte en contra de estas agencias, porque realmente los trabajadores temporales tenían muchas justicias, como por ejemplo, como estaba hablando ahorita, que fue muy triste para mí la historia de Rupali, en el cual hacemos conexión, porque nosotros acá en New Jersey, todos los trabajadores inmigrantes, realmente pasamos una lucha muy fuerte, porque siempre estamos luchando. Primeramente, el salario de los trabajadores temporales es muy malo, ganamos el mínimo, y realmente la transportación también es muy mala, las vanes demasiado llenas, mucho robo de salario, no nos entregaban los cheques a tiempo, y hay veces que no nos pagaban nuestro overtime, y cada vez que nosotros reclamamos a la agencia sobre nuestro salario, que no nos faltan horas o algo, la agencia lo que hacía era tomaba represalia en contra de los trabajadores, en contra de mí misma, tomó muchas veces represalia, no mandándome a trabajar o sacándome de la agencia, diciéndome, ya no tienes más trabajo, no te necesito. Entonces, esta lucha, cuando yo llegué a New Labor, esta lucha era muy fuerte, y realmente New Labor tenía más de 20 años luchando a favor de los trabajadores temporales. Ahora en el 2022, realmente pudimos, 2019 se introdujo una ley, pero realmente no llegó a leerse en el estado. Entonces en el 2021 logramos otra vez reintroducirla y logramos ganar. Ahora en febrero de este año, por fin de tanta lucha, tanto esfuerzo, logramos que nuestro gobernador Murphy firmara esta ley a favor de los trabajadores temporales, en el cual vamos a tener el derecho de saber a dónde nos mandan a trabajar, porque en el pasado siempre nos decían, van a las panties, van a las playeras, van a las mochilas. Nosotros nunca sabíamos cómo se llamaba el lugar. Entonces, esta ley va a hacer que este derecho nos digan exactamente a dónde nos mandan a trabajar. También nos va a proteger en contra de la represalia, porque ese era el miedo de los trabajadores realmente, de quejarse de que algo malo estaba pasando en el lugar de trabajo, porque tenía miedo a la represalia. Y también esta ley nos va a proteger en contra de la represalia. Y otro punto muy importante es que el transporte, si la agencia lo provee, no nos lo va a cobrar, porque por muchos años estas agencias se hicieron millonarias a costa de nuestro trabajo, porque nos descontaban de nuestro cheque. Y incluso hasta el día de hoy, ellos estaban cobrando 50, 60 dólares a los trabajadores por semana por transportarnos, cuando la agencia realmente es nuestro empleador, no es el warehouse, es la agencia. ¿Y por qué ellos nos estaban quitando ese dinero? También hay veces que nos mandaban a trabajar y nos regresaban, nos decían en el warehouse, no lo necesitamos, nos mandaron mucha gente, váyanse para su casa. Ahora vamos a tener el derecho de cobrar por lo menos 4 horas de nuestro salario, ya que perdimos todo el día. Entonces, es algo bueno porque son cosas injustas que estaban pasando con los trabajadores temporales. También pago igual, que es una igualdad de pago, ya que en muchos lugares los trabajadores temporales a veces se quedan con permanentes y por mucho tiempo están trabajando al lado de una persona que está por compañía y gana menos que esa persona y está haciendo el mismo trabajo. Entonces, lo que hace esta ley, que los trabajadores temporales en New Jersey estén protegidos, pero no fue nada fácil, fue una lucha muy dura para llegar a lograr esta ley. Realmente, cuando se hicieron las encuestas, lo que arrojaban las encuestas era de que había demasiado robo de salario, mucha falta de respeto hacia los trabajadores, el transporte era demasiado malo. Entonces, estas cosas ahora en Nueva Jersey van a cambiar. ¿Por qué? Porque los trabajadores se han unido y realmente New Labor estuvo al lado de todos ellos para que pudiéramos ser protegidos. Y realmente, como yo les dije, yo soy staff ahora de New Labor y me siento bien orgullosa porque realmente vamos a estar protegidos los trabajadores, porque por mucho tiempo los trabajadores temporales no tenían derecho a nada, no tenían días de enfermedad, no les pagan vacaciones. Entonces, esta protección va a hacer que realmente los trabajadores ahora sí estén protegidos y que más que nada que les brinden entrenamientos de salud y seguridad, porque esto falta mucho, porque ningún trabajador tiene que morir en un lugar de trabajo. Ningún trabajador se tiene que lastimar, tiene que llegar sano y salvo a su casa. No sé si tienes alguna otra pregunta.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, congratulations on the law. I am sure it was a very hard struggle, but as you say, to be united, a collective effort, and to have something like New Labor supporting you made all the difference. I will just point out that all of the things you've listed, but very low salary, transportation problems, wage theft, lack of overtime pay, fear of retaliation, and the general treatment of disposability and lack of respect, I think garment workers in Bangladesh would immediately recognize this. Very different contexts, again, very different cultural and geographical contexts, but they would recognize that, and they are struggling against some very similar things. We do want, we will come back to you because we will have a question and answer session, and perhaps we can also talk about what happened during the pandemic and how you dealt with that, because I can see already that there will be other connections, right, about between these two struggles that seem so not similar on the surface, but are very, very well connected. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay. Well, our next speaker is a dear friend and comrade and a very special person in the life of, activism in Bangladesh, Taslima Akhtar, who is a photographer, very talented, gifted photographer, but also the founder and president of the Bangladesh Garment Workers Solidarity Association. Her bio, she has a very long bio, and I can share it with you if you like. But in the interest of time, I'm going to ask Taslima to talk about the recent condition of garment workers, and of course, the significance of this kind of international unity. So Lima, if you are there.
Thank you, Dinafa. Before starting to talk about recent condition of garment workers, I want to give a special thanks to DSA New Labor Workers Center and friends of DSA to organize this program. I think to organize this program, all of we are echoing that the Rana Plaza collapse and death of 1,000 workers. This day is not a local thing, and it's, of course, there is a significance, and this day should be observed globally. Thank you, all of you. When Rupali was talking about her experience, and when Alison was also talking about her poem, I was thinking about the 145 migrant workers who died in Triangle Sweater. And at the same time, I'm remembering more than 100 workers who died in Tazreen fire, and also more than 1,100 workers who died in Rana Plaza. I think when Rupali said about her experience, we found that it's a very traumatic experience. And still the workers who were inside the rubble, they are carrying the mental and physical trauma. But if we look at the recent condition of Bangladeshi garment workers, then maybe we don't need to talk only about incidents or killings or fires like Tazreen or Rana Plaza, because if you look at the face of young garment workers in Bangladesh, you can feel what kind of life they are living. Most of the workers in Bangladesh who now become the part of globalization by stitching made in Bangladesh with the t-shirt for the Western consumer. If you look at their face, you will find that they are not looking so much young, though they are young. They look pale because in our country, more than 4 million workers, they are working in this sector and earning more than 84% foreign export income. But they are living in a very poor condition, and near about $75 they are earning as minimum wage as per month. we also know that those workers, they are sacrificing their nutrition, their youth for development of our economy, not only our economy, at the same time, the global, for the global economy. And I want to share a few things that just 1 week ago, I and Rupali went to Australia to observe a program for Rana Plaza. That time we were in a coffee shop and we saw that a big advertisement in a supermarket where there is some text about the big brands and small prices. Here we are, and also text about that every day we have new things, you can come here, make fun and explore new things. So for these new things, for making fun of Western consumer and for the fast fashion, our Bangladeshi garment workers, they are sacrificing their life. So I think that Bangladeshi garment workers, their issues, their crisis is not only a Bangladeshi workers issue, because they work in a supply chain where not only owner and government is responsible for the poor living condition, safety condition. The brands who come to Bangladesh for the cheapest labor, and they take the lion part from the profit. So I think that we should share our experience from Bangladesh to all other part of the world, that our garment workers are making t-shirt for the Western consumer, and they started to know about workers' life and the story of bloodshed and other things just after Rana Plaza. But I think that that time when Rana Plaza collapse happened, that time we become more close, because social emotion increased that time. Still, we cannot say that social emotion is still working. This social emotion faded somehow, but the mental wound of workers still is going on. And also now the reality come in front of all of us. So we feel that it is very important to organize like wage, safety and trade union, which is very important, because after Rana Plaza, we saw that our owner, our government and brands, they are trying to say that, yes, they have made many improvement, like building safety, and there are many green factory in our country, and they have a dream, our owner have a dream to make this $100 billion industry, but they don't talk about the well-being of workers. So this is very important, I think. And now the social emotion is not working, but we know the reality and we know the necessity also, that what we should do to ensure workers' rights. So I think this discussion is very important, and it will create a scope to make solidarity, which is very necessary this time. And we think that to ensure workers' rights, and especially the trade union rights, all of we know that in Bangladesh, the trade union rights is very much violated, and the total workers area is corrupted by owners, goon, the different agencies. So there is no right to express freedom of expression. So with all this, we believe this discussion and this solidarity bridging initiative will help us to organize ourselves locally and create an impact globally that will help us to make a strong movement, I think, because maybe we are living in different corner of the world, but we are facing the same crisis, wage for safety and union. So I think we will work together in future to save each other, to change the world, and to ensure workers' rights. So thank you, all of you, for this discussion. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. You've brought up some very, very important issues, including first the way in which work in this industry wears out workers' bodies quite literally. You can see it in their faces, as you were saying, and this has to do with not being paid living wages, so you don't get enough nutrition, right? And you've pointed out how it's, there's a global supply chain and Bangladeshi workers are producing so other people can get pleasure, basically. So there's a lot in there. And finally, the question of accountability is there. We will circle back to these really important points. Thank you. Our next guest is Carmen Martino, who is hopefully here. There you are, Carmen. Who is at Rutgers University and Director of Occupational Training and Educational Consortium. Carmen, tell us a little bit about your work.
Yes. First, thank you for having me, and I'm very excited by this event, in large part because it is a conversation that we're having now, I think, on sort of a global conversation that is inclusive of everyone who works in these supply chains. And what garment workers do in Bangladesh for organizations like H&M, Walmart, Target, and the rest, those products that are produced in Bangladesh end up being put in boxes and then put in containers, and the containers are put into ships, and the ships get offloaded in places like Newark, New Jersey, right? And it's the workers who pick up those boxes eventually after they get taken out of containers. The boxes get moved onto trucks, trains, wherever, and at some point they reach distribution centers, and the workers who pick up those boxes and move them are the people who work who are members of New Labor, and they are in many cases temp workers. In fact, a high percentage of the people who move those goods are temp workers. And in places like New Brunswick, New Jersey, Paterson, New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, Union, New Jersey, all of these places where you will find heavy concentrations of immigrants, you will find the workers who do those jobs. And many of them are undocumented. And the struggles that Rana described to you have been going on, and I'm been aware of them for 23 years now. And the conversations that we're having right now, though, are different because we are making these connections between the garment workers in Bangladesh and the temp workers in New Brunswick, right? It's an interesting dynamic because one of the things, I had something prepared to speak, but I think given what's already been said, I don't want to get like I'm saying that we're saying too many things over and over again. But what I'm struck by is that, we just came through a pandemic, and the pandemic, at least on our side of the planet, we were told social distance was the thing. You have to stay 6 feet apart so you don't contract the virus or give it to someone else, or you reduce the risk through social distancing. As an organizer myself, historically, as a researcher, a labor educator in the present, there are other ways that term social distance has been used historically. And what I mean by that. So when the women who had to jump and die in the Triangle Shirtwaist fire, no one knew who they were until they died. No one understood what they did until they were gone. And in New York City, there was this thing called social distance, as I understand it, that was the women who bought the shirtwaist, in the local department stores at the time. they had no idea of the women who made the shirts until they were gone. But there was an awareness. Their deaths were not in vain because there were changes. There were fundamental changes that happened to improve the lives of garment workers in the early part of the 20th century as a result of that. And much of it had to do with awareness. And this sense of social distance was sort of closed because there was an understanding at a community level that these were all people who lived in the same and worked in the same communities, bought the shirts from those places. And so it was an understanding that was based on experience, and social distance was narrowed. We live in a completely different world now. We move 100 years later and we're in Rana Plaza. And personally, I never knew anything about Rana Plaza. In my experience, I really didn't know it existed until 1,000 workers died in a collapse. And then suddenly I made the connection between the shirts I bought at Walmart, or a little later on, the shirts I purchased online in the middle of a pandemic through through whomever we buy our shirts from, Amazon, whomever, right? I made those connections at that point. And there were changes as a result of Rana Plaza. There was an awareness globally about the struggles of the workers who made those shirts. Now, over time, what happens? We go back to being consumers and we forget. We go back to being governments and we want everybody to forget. And we try to patch over and say, oh no, it's okay now. It's okay now, as was just, explained. And of course, the multinationals, their job after Rana Plaza was clean up the mess, make this look pretty so we can go back to maximizing profits for our shareholders. And at the same time, our consumers are happy again. They'll buy the shirts, right? That's their objective. So we're left with a better understanding now, I think, I hope, I see it, that we can think of ourselves, our temp worker brothers and sisters in New Brunswick who move the shirts, and our brothers and sisters who make them in Bangladesh. We have the technology, we have the understanding. We just need to figure out strategically how we move forward, because the other thing we learned in the pandemic, right? Not just about social distance, but about how vulnerable supply chains are, right? How strategically they can be manipulated, right? And how, if that's the case, and we gain that understanding, then it's incumbent upon us to work together to use our leverage to get what we want, which is better pay, better working conditions, and ultimately the thing that the workers in Bangladesh and New Brunswick all want, which is dignity and respect from their employers, equity, so that we can bargain with them at a bargaining table and they understand that we are equals and we make equal contributions, if not more. Yeah. That's where we need to go, and I'm sure we can get there. And like I said, I feel like meetings like this are a first step. And you made the point earlier, the point's already been made by several folks now, that the circumstances, the conditions, the issues, they're the same in both places. Our cultures are worlds apart, but our supply chains are connected. Yes. And that's what we have to focus on.
Thank you so much. Gosh, we are all connected by supply chains, I was thinking, right? Ironically, gosh, again, very important points made about the interesting connections between social distancing and class distancing. Yes. It's that class that distances, who knows who makes you don't care. You don't have to care who makes your clothes when you are so distant, right? You don't have to see that. And that's been part of the problem. To be very honest, I did not know that there was a building called Rana Plaza. I, of course, knew about factories, but I didn't hear about it until its collapse either. And I was there. So thank you. We have a lot to talk about. I'm very excited about this meeting because it is a first step toward bringing about more connections. Connectivity seems to be really important. I'm going to turn now to Abul Ahsan Rubel, who is the executive coordinator of Ganoshanghati Andolon, the People's Solidarity Movement, and chief coordinator of Protibesh Andolon, the environment movement. And he is actually going to talk about the larger context of political movements, right? And what we need, the necessity of politicization of workers, and the larger political context in which workers can unite or have collective struggle in Bangladesh, because of course workers' struggles don't happen in a vacuum. There are other social movements and there is the state. So Rubel, আপনি যদি শুরু করেন।
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, I would like to start from Rana Plaza, especially when I was hearing Rupali. It reminded me those horrifying days, and the experience was really more horrible for the workers there, and saddened everyone, I think. When we look at the Rana Plaza incident, we can see something like the incident, which was somehow called by the host is a murder, is correctly called as that, because it was completely avoidable. Everyone knew that this place is dangerous for the working for people, and they cannot work in this condition. And it was closed, but it was opened, and the workers were somehow forced there to work. And this is kind of murder. The building that was not following the building codes, and the very day the workers were brought there, because there was a like hartal or something like that from the opposition party, and they wanted to use the garment worker against that hartal and like this. So there is a political motive in that as well. So when I was talking about this thing, generally everywhere in the world, people, especially the working people, are affected by politics. Bangladesh is no exception, but in Bangladesh, this is gone so very far, and it has cost many lives, thousands of lives. This is what we have seen. So to be used in political way, and to be able to make your political decision, we need to differentiate those things, and we always want workers to be politically aware, and so that they can make their decision and they can choose what system, what people, what party they can serve their interest. This is what I was thinking when I was just thinking about what is the need of political consciousness or awareness or something like that, especially in Bangladesh. This is true everywhere in the world, that the system and other things affect the working people, but especially in Bangladesh, here everything gone with the power. Whoever in the power, he control every aspect of life. This is a thing that is what we are calling for a reformation of that system for a long time, as a political party, Ganashanghati Andolon. And when we look forward about Rana Plaza, when we look forward about the things happen there and what happens afterwards, we can see some trends like the owner of the Rana Plaza is still not punished. The working condition not highly improved or something like that. And there is in fact added factor here that when the workers want to form a movement or something like that, there is a strong surveillance from the state, and there is a culture of fear among the workers. This is what we are seeing. And if we look at Rana Plaza incident in other way, like in the same building, there were a Bragg office, that is a Bragg bank office, and it was moved 15 days before that incident because they knew that this is a dangerous place. And from that, we can see that when the life of a garment worker, this is considered far, far less important. And in fact, there was no state intervention, no other interventions or other things to rescue the garment workers from that to happen. And this leads us to conclude that when you are a cheap labor, you are cheaply dying. You are dying cheaply. Well, so the wage structure which exists in Bangladesh for the garment worker is not a living wage at all. And what we say that the whole organization of capital in garment sector is like that, if anyone don't work overtime, they will not get their living wage. And the whole organization of capital ensures that everyone works overtime, otherwise they cannot give their order in time and other things. So this is a global phenomena. This is a distribution of labor of global capital. So every citizen of the world, I can say that has a responsibility to the workers of other countries, and especially the so-called third world countries. And in Bangladesh, we are fighting for those things. And I can tell that it is often celebrated in Bangladesh that garment sector earns 84% of the foreign income of the foreign 84% of our it's just gone in one word, like Roftani. The foreign import, the 84% of foreign import comes from Bangladesh, but there lies the trap. In fact, when one sector controls 84% of foreign import earnings, they can do everything. And we can say that garment owners of Bangladesh are very powerful, and they are also occupying a large portion of the cronies which are related to the government. So this is one thing that we should consider, that our productive capacity and production should be diversified. It should be in other sectors as well, and it should be increased a lot. And another thing is Bangladesh is in garment sector from 80s, so it has gained some like experiences and other capacities has been built. So we should switch on in more in producing garments which can give more money, more ways to the workers. This is another thing. And globally, there should be an awareness among the users and other things which you people can help a lot, I think, that who are profiting from the garment sector of Bangladesh, or who are wearing the clothes from these workers, they have some responsibility to the workers. This is what we should do globally. And another thing I can say that in political perspective, in Bangladesh, we are in a situation that even a small demand of workers cannot be met, because the government of Bangladesh is just ignored all the demands from the people, and they are not elected. They are not elected by people's vote, and they don't care about the people. They just care about their cronies, and we need to make a democratic transition of our political system, and it will help us to provide a platform which will create equal opportunity to our citizens. And also the state should be responsible for giving the quality education, health service, and other things to the workers who are benefiting them a lot. They are the lifeblood of the economy. So government should take responsibility of that. And we want to make those changes in Bangladesh, and we are fighting for that. And I would like you to join the fight. And thank you, everyone, for this arrangement, and especially the three organizations who are hosting. I thank you. I thank them all from my heart.
Thank you so much, Rubel. Very good thoughts about, again, how we can come together, and so much needs to be done in Bangladesh. We are at a point in our discussion where we can actually open up the discussion to have a conversation amongst all of you who have spoken. And I thought I would throw out a question at first to get us going, which is that it's been 10 years since the Rana Plaza collapse. That's a long time. What has changed in those 10 years, right? Are workers more valued? Rupali was talking about how the value of workers is clearly, workers are cheap, right? We've also since Rana Plaza, there has been the much vaunted Accord on Bangladesh Accord on fire and factory building safety, and another thing called the Alliance, which we may not go into. I have written a lot about this, but I'd like to hear from our friends in Bangladesh what they feel has changed and what needs to change, right? And perhaps how they can get support from other people. And then I have a question for Ronalda and Carmen as well. But let me start with the Accord and the Alliance and what's replaced it, which is the RMG Sustainability Compact, I believe it's called, consortium. So I don't know who wants to take this. Do you want to start, Taslima?
Thank you, Dinapa. I want to add few things about the recent movement in Bangladesh. Actually, when we talk about things like Rana Plaza Collapse, or when we show our sympathy, we demand the punishment and change of compensation law, especially these kinds of issue when raised that time, our government owner, they don't take it that much seriously. They also try to say, yes, we are also aware about safety issue and we are trying to improve trade union rights and other things. All these are in paper. But in real situation, we see that in Bangladesh, now Bangladeshi garment workers are earning only $75 and they are demanding 25,000 taka, that is near about $215. And when the wage issue come in front of all of us, then it's become a big thing, and government owner, they took the hard line against the activists, against the workers leaders, and they just want to stop movement. So now we are passing a critical time. Maybe we can talk about Rana Plaza, but we don't so easily move the wage movement, because this is highly related with the class issue, and this is also related with the local and global economy. So I think that we need to be together and we need to work together for making accountable whole supply chain. And maybe our international solidarity can help us to make pressure on international brands. When Rana Plaza Collapse happened, that time we saw that many friends from different corner of the world, they are doing many things to show their solidarity. But I think after 10th year of Rana Plaza, now we need the real solidarity to fight the situation, and especially when there is a wage movement going on. So I think we need to think about how we can work for this and how we can support each other to make the movement strong. Yeah, from my side.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's very important. And I think you're reminding us that one of the limitations of what happened right after the Rana Plaza collapse is there was only focus on the building and fire safety, but what, you know, the focus on living wages, on getting paid a decent wage is there. It's a much longer term issue. It's this issues are there beyond building and fire safety. And that's what workers are now demanding in Bangladesh. And there is a lot of labor suppression. And I think it is the pandemic that sort of made clear, it seems to me, just what hadn't changed after Rana Plaza. Workers were still forced to go into factories or not go into factories, depending on the whims of factory owners and the government and perhaps the global market. So I want to turn to Carmen and Ronaldo. Actually, I think Ronaldo first, about your experience of the pandemic and how the kinds of laws, you have this law that now you have a right to know where you're going. So that's a really good law. But I think perhaps the pandemic showed you that there are other kinds of insecurities too that aren't covered by this law. So how do you see the future of organizing in your industry? And then we can talk about how to connect.
Bueno, en lo de la pandemia, para los trabajadores temporales fue muy duro porque muchos murieron y realmente en ese momento OSHA no tenía ninguna ley que protegiera a los trabajadores en tiempo de pandemia. Realmente OSHA no estaba preparada. pero nosotros en New Jersey nos unimos todas las organizaciones, hicimos, como le dijera, realmente algo muy fuerte. Logramos que el gobernador de New Jersey firmara una acción ejecutiva donde la 192, donde todos los trabajadores realmente tuvieran esa protección, como que en sus trabajos se les diera 6 pies de distancia, se les diera el equipo de protección. Realmente cuando se formó esta coalición fue muy fuerte porque incluso tuvimos que hacer acciones en frente de los warehouse para que sí les dieran esa seguridad y esa protección a los trabajadores, en frente de las agencias también. O sea que cuando se formó esta coalición realmente sí se vio que teníamos poder y que los trabajadores sí tienen poder, porque cuando los trabajadores se unen, sí tienen poder de cambiar muchas cosas. Y realmente, porque los trabajadores temporales, como dije, las vanes iban llenas a pesar de que estábamos en tiempo de pandemia, los trabajadores temporales eran esenciales. Ningún warehouse cerró, seguían trabajando y enfermos iban a trabajar. Era cuando más trabajo había para ellos. Entonces, no respetaban nada de lo que el gobierno federal decía. Tuvimos que buscar esa fuerza en esta coalición para que realmente se hiciera un cambio, y sí logramos un cambio en Nueva Jersey en tiempos de pandemia, pero lamentablemente muchos de nuestros hermanos, parientes y amigos murieron al principio de la pandemia realmente porque estas agencias no vieron por los trabajadores, nunca hicieron nada por los trabajadores, al contrario, ellos exprimían a los trabajadores. O sea, cuando yo digo exprimir, era que realmente abusaban de los trabajadores.
Okay. Did you want to add something? You're done?
No se lo paso a Carmen porque para que él diga lo que quiera decir.
Carmen.
So a couple of things based on what Rana said. One thing is, temp workers, low-wage temp workers in the pandemic, who many of them are undocumented workers in New Jersey, they all suddenly became what we defined as essential workers. And they were essential because, when I pushed the return button on my computer the next day, the stuff arrived at the door. Whenever I ordered online. So it was the essential workers, those temp workers, those undocumented workers who were moving those goods that ultimately ended up at my doorstep every day. And of course, they were expendable in that sense, right? But out of that, there has, I think, been some very positive things. For example, the Temp Worker Bill of Rights was passed. It gained some momentum in part because of that experience, and it finally got passed. The other thing, though, I would say is that during the pandemic, Rana mentioned the governor of New Jersey, and he did pass an executive order.
Carmen, you're being asked to slow down a little bit.
I'm sorry. Okay, will do. All right. So when the governor of New Jersey passed this directive that essentially said the workers have protection and they can enforce these protections under this executive order when they're at work. The state also provided Rutgers with about $1 million, and over the course of a year and a half, from October of 2020 to the end of 2021, we trained 6,000 workers online and provided basic health and safety training. And we did that by training other workers to be worker trainers who went online and trained other workers. So I think again, to sort of bring things back to where we are here, I think workers learned a lot about how we can communicate in ways beyond our locality and our reach goes further, and workers experienced it directly. So that's the kind of stuff we have to capitalize on, I think, moving forward. The other thing I would say, and this gets to the more sort of nuts and bolts, or bread and potatoes, however you want to describe it, of collective bargaining and getting workers paid or compensated correctly. And what we just did in New Jersey, the professors, I'm a member of the AAUP, American Association of University Professors. We went on strike in Rutgers.
Yeah.
And one of our demands was what we were described as bargaining for the common good. And those demands included demands for students. And one of the things we won at Rutgers, if a student owed money to the university, they were not allowed to get their diploma until they paid back the debt, or they couldn't get access to their transcript to apply for a job. That's changed. Under the strike, that's not going to happen. The other thing that happened, we didn't get as far as we wanted, but we tried to get Rutgers to take responsibility for the rent it charges to students. Because the rent that Rutgers charges to students in New Brunswick and Newark and Camden also defines the rent that temp workers have to pay who live in New Brunswick and Camden and Newark. So Rutgers would not take that responsibility, and they still haven't. But that's not to say that we shouldn't still continue to fight and think along terms of a class alliance like that, where the interest of the community that we all work in, right, is connected to the people who live in that community, who do work ultimately that contributes to what the university does, right? So we try to make those connections through this bargaining, through the common good. And we did make some progress. While the university isn't putting any money into this kind of an effort, the state has agreed for the life of the contract to give us $600,000 a year to work in that direction through a nonprofit that will be headed up by community members, students, faculty, and some representative from the university. So we've made that kind of progress. Bargaining with the common good, and again, workers being able to do their own training, learning how to use technology, and moving forward in a way I think that can bring us closer together with global supply chains and in our own communities.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. I love this idea of bargaining for the common good, because it is based on this idea that our interests are not narrow individual interests, right? And this problem with access to transcripts and things, I see it all the time in this ridiculously expensive institution where I work. But absolutely. But you've also brought up the question of who are our allies? How do we make, how do we, first of all, the inspiration we can get from allies. I mean, just hearing about that gives one courage to move ahead and make demands that might seem unrealistic, but they are not if you fight for it. And this is where I want to actually return to Taslima a little bit to talk about, and actually it's open to everybody, but to talk a little about how she sees the rest of us in different parts of the world, but particularly in the US, in this conversation can contribute toward being good allies to the movement in Bangladesh. And I will let you have, and I don't know if Rupali wants to, if she's here, and if she wants to add something, but I really want you to tell all of the audience about how, what it means to be a good ally. I'm assuming it does not mean boycotting made in Bangladesh goods. I just want to really say that, because that doesn't necessarily help the workers at all. So I personally don't think that's a good answer. Good step.
Thank you, Dinapa. When I was listening Rinala and Carmen, that time I'm also feeling the same experience that in our country now garment workers are fighting for $215 minimum wage, and the owner and government, they have started taking action against them, and many workers they fired, and all the time workers in a fear of losing job. And when Rana Plaza happened, that time also those wounded workers and the family members, they didn't get any time to sit in a place in a calm, quiet environment to think about their beloved person. They all the time moving around for compensation, to looking for the dead bodies and these things. And when the COVID attacked our country, that time also we saw that our workers have no luxury to maintain social distance and other things, and they bound to go factory, and they save the economy, but our owner and brands, they couldn't pay them properly, and they faced layoff, wage cut, and many other problems that time. And all the time when we raise voice that we should improve the living condition of workers, that time our owners and brands always try to say, not they are not in a good condition, their economical condition is not good, and all the time they put the responsibility on workers when there is some kind of loss or disaster like COVID or something. They don't want to take the responsibility, like a new liberal economy that profit is private and the loss is public. So they always put the burden on workers. So I think that for ensuring workers' rights, we need to find who are really our friend, who can work together. I think it is not enough to show only sympathy on workers or the wounded workers, but we need a collective leadership in all country who will be motivated by their ideology and who can fight against the repression of owner and international brands. And also, I think it is very important to support each another from different corners of the world to make the movement powerful, to make the workers' power. I think that is very important. And I think though we are living in a supply chain and global, in a part of globalization, so we can do many things if we really mean it. That and it is not only our Bangladeshi issue. So if we really want to work together, want to think about workers of the world unite, then we can do many things. When Rana Plaza happened, that time we saw our international friends, they are doing different kinds of things. They are doing protests in front of brands. They are doing cultural activity. They are writing poems, making sculpture, photographs, many things. So I think we can do the union activity. At the same time, we can do political activity for ensuring the safety and workers' right in any corner of the world. Maybe for garment, we can think about more about other cheap labor who are fighting for the same issues. Maybe we can work together. And without this solidarity and without making bridge with each other, I think it is really difficult. And we need this kind of discussion, create a scope to learn from each other, and I think we can keep contact with each other to make our movement strong. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. We are actually a little bit over time, so it's going to be time to wrap up. I don't know if people, Taslima, if people want to actually contribute directly to, in some way, to your organization. Is there, I guess Dishar has put the Facebook page for Garments from Ikshanghati on there. That's a link that people have if you want to add something else. And before we go, I also want to ask Rinalda if she, if people want to support new labor if you could just very quickly speak about that, and maybe I'll go to Ronalda first, and then I'll ask Taslima, give her the last word. Okay, so Ronalda, any thoughts on how the rest of us can support New Labor?
Bueno, como ya puso el link, ustedes si lo pueden abrir, está ahí, de la manera que nos puedan ayudar. Hay varias maneras de cómo ayudarnos. Si no lo hace económicamente, también puede llegar a nuestro centro. Los que viven acá en New Jersey, estamos en 3 centros, estamos en New Brunswick, Newark y Lakewood. Y económicamente, pues pueden entrar al website que está ahí y ahí pueden donar.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's very good. Taslima, did you want to add anything about
Now
supporting
we
workers
are
in Bangladesh?
in our wage movement. We are demanding $15 per month. I think it will be great if all of our international friends also can share or show their solidarity with this wage movement. This is also helpful, and we are trying to build our organization, our leadership, and I hope that with different kind of collaboration support, we can be with each other.
All right. Thank you so much. We have some links in the chat for the audience if you are, and I hope you will follow up. It is getting time to end. Before I do, I want to thank Dijar, first of all, for managing this incredibly complex operation, but our interpreters especially, who had a very complex task. I don't even understand half of what they did. But Adiba, Froze, Gina Engst, Alexa Malishchak, and Abdullah Nadvi, thank you so, so much for making this conversation possible. Thank you to Rupali. Thank you to Ronalda, to Carmen, of course, Taslima, and everybody else who helped. There are lots of people I see who are on the team who made this possible. I hope this is the beginning, to Carmen, I hope this is the beginning of more and more of these conversations where we learn to connect and, really bring together ways to, brainstorm about solidarity. Now that we're beginning to know a little bit about each other, this is really just a first step. So thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
will see you next time.
I'm just going to say Aish and Ronald in the background holding it down from DSA, and absolutely.